How's it going, everyone? As always, my name is Jimmy Champagne. This is PSReady, my channel all about PlayStation. There's a ton of PlayStation news to go through today, starting with the PS2 is back forever. Second on the list, I got a question for you. Are you panic buying a PlayStation 5? And third and finally, Devil May Cry 6 might have just leaked. This video is sponsored by Scry. Yep, you get it. My friends from Scry are back to sponsor another video on PSReady with their Arctic PS5 coolers. You guys know I'm into racing games, and right now I've been splitting my time between the Crew Motorfest and Gran Turismo 7, both games that push the PS5 to its limits, but with this cooler on my PS5, it stays perfectly chill. There's two key benefits that play into each other with these coolers. The first one is that you're going to get a longer lifespan out of your console because it's going to stay cool the entire time you're using it, which will extend the lifespan of its individual components. The second great thing is that it prevents thermal throttling, so the game will run at its best no matter how long you're on your console. And when I play racing games, I get hooked and addicted, and I sit there for hours on the weekends just going through the same license tests over and over again in Gran Turismo 7. Some of them get pretty tough. And I've mentioned it before on the channel, I'm either fortunate or dumb enough, depending on how you look at it, to have three PS5s. The launch model has the Arctic V2, my PS5 Slim has the Arctic S, and my PS5 Pro has the Arctic Pro. They're all staying perfectly cool no matter what I'm playing. And Scry was awesome enough to hook me up with a discount for my viewers, so if you pre-order one of these coolers from their website and use the code PSReady at checkout, you'll get an extra $5 off. It rules. Once again, huge shout out to Scry for sponsoring this video. Let's jump into this first news story here about the PS2 being back forever. So you might have noticed this new trend, or maybe not because you play on console exclusively, but on PC, people have been porting old games to PC, like not running them through emulation, but building like full-on ports, because people have been developing these easy wrapper tools or like converter tools or something. I don't really understand how it works, but essentially it's like a program you can input an emulated game into, and then it'll spit out an exe that's like a native port for PC. I'm pretty sure the first big game to like catch on that did this was Zelda: The Ocarina of Time, but people were trolling through GitHub and found someone working on one of these for the PlayStation 2. It's about 8 months along, but it's already gotten some good progress. Unfortunately, the developer of this app kind of got bored and moved on, but he left the source code up there, and now that it's been discovered, more people are taking the reins and they're building out this tool to natively port PS2 games over to PC. Now, if you play on console exclusively, you might not care all that much about this, but it is very important because, as we've seen, Sony is kind of lagging behind in terms of game preservation. I hate that term, honestly. It's like makes everything feel so like official, like everything's got to have a word now. Like Sony's lagging behind in the sense that they don't port their games forward outside of PS4 to PS5. Like they've done a decent job, I would say, getting some PS1 games, some PSP games, some PS2 games up and running on the PlayStation 5. I don't think they've done a very good job putting enough games on this service. Like it's been over a year at this point, and there's like a handful of classic games. So like by the time the generation ends, we might have them all filled out. But it honestly reminds me of how things worked back in the Wii days, or the Wii U days, or the 3DS days, where they would spread them out so thin that like by the time all the games you'd actually want to play were released on the virtual console or whatever, the eShop, whatever Nintendo calls it, I don't know. It was like beyond the console's life cycle, so it didn't really matter. So by building these tools that port over games directly to PC, not only are you able to run these games natively without an emulator, which is cool on its own, but it also adds in features like resolution upscaling. I'm sure you could get like DLSS activated to get very clean lines in a lot of these games, frame rate limiters, like everything across the board is activated. So people were playing Ocarina of Time on an ultra wide monitor, and it wasn't stretching the image out because since it was a regular old PC exe, it was able to use that effectively to just make it look right on the monitor. Like it's scaled correctly, which is really damn cool. I think this would be sweet for PS3 and Xbox 360 games because there actually are a lot of games from that generation that didn't get PC ports. Like I was thinking about Army of Two the other day and how much fun that was, and I was like, oh, that's got to be ported to PC. It's an EA game. Nope, it never got a PC port. So I was looking at emulating it on 360 or PS3, and it's just so much of a headache that if you could get it to the point where you can install the game as its own exe, that would be awesome, and then you'll never have to worry about this stuff again. It's also really cool for the Steam Deck, so that's awesome. So whether or not Sony continues to port their games up to newer consoles, it's becoming very quickly a situation where it doesn't really matter. People are always going to find a way around it, and when you've got these cool PC direct ports reports coming out from developers who create these tools that convert them for you, it gives you a better looking game than you'll ever get on a PlayStation console, and that's pretty damn cool. But yeah, that brings me to the second news story here, which is there are a bunch of reports going around that people are panic buying PlayStation 5s because of this tariff situation, which they might have jumped the gun on this scenario because I talked about this in the last video, but Sony's done a really good job sort of importing as many PlayStation 5s as possible. I will say the tariff situation is crazy, but at least there was enough leeway to kind of let companies know that, yeah, if you're making your product outside the United States and you want to sell it here without a tariff, you better get it here before those tariffs come into place, because if you wait too long, manufacturing the products after that date is going to increase the price of the company, which then in turn, of course, increases the price for the consumer, because if they're paying more to make these consoles, it of course is going to cause the price to go up. That's not really a shock in any way. But the more I think about it, while panic buying is a little crazy, like if you don't have any games you actually want to play on a PlayStation 5 and you're just buying it to stick in a closet, I wouldn't do that, because the tariff situation will probably resolve itself eventually. It's not like these things are going to be allowed to cost $1,000 or whatever for long. They need to sell these things to stay afloat. Buying a PlayStation 5 now is like the best thing you could ever do. There are so many games to take advantage of on it. If you're one of those people, that 50% or so out there who have not upgraded from the PlayStation 4, I mean, it is well past the point where that's like acceptable, in my opinion. You are just doing it to do it at that point. There are more than enough games on the next gen console that actually take advantage of the hardware at this point to where you're really just missing out. We've got stuff like Ghost of Yotei coming out. We've got stuff like Death Stranding 2 coming out. GTA 6 is going to be the big one, and I know a lot of people are waiting to upgrade from the PS4 to PS5 until GTA 6 comes out, but that's arguably the worst time to do it, because that's going to be when there's high demand, right? Like that's when this thing's going to start selling out, and then they're going to have to ship more, and once they have to ship more, that's when the price is going to go up. So if you're one of these like stalwarts who's like, no, nothing ever happens, I don't want to upgrade to the PlayStation 5, at this point it's just dumb, honestly. Like I've been trying to play both sides of it to try and understand why people aren't upgrading, and from one perspective I do see it. Like the games that have come out so far are released on PlayStation 4, and Sony does a good job making them run right on PlayStation 4, but like the console's so good, it's like you're missing out on such a better experience. Not only does it run games better, it's quieter, the interface is better, everything is quicker, accessing things like trophies, the store, and everything else is just better across the board. Like the quality of life improvement from the PS4 to PS5 is so vast that like it's worth upgrading to alone. And the real linchpin feature is the DualSense. It's just such a great controller. Like I love using my PS1 inspired DualSense Edge. I was playing Atomfall on my PC last night, and I was like, damn, this controller is awesome. And when you look at all the other landscape of gaming console hardware out there, Xbox's controller sucks. I know people love the Xbox One controller and they barely changed it, but that's a generation old controller at this point, and the DualSense is just better. I'm sick of like having to pretend that the Xbox One controller is so good. It's like people pretending that there's never been an advancement from the GameCube controller. The GameCube controller is good for games like Super Smash Brothers, but like outside of that, I would never want to use it with something like Elden Ring because the second stick sucks ass. So yeah, the panic buying is dumb on the one hand, just because we haven't had a huge price increase on the PlayStation 5 in the United States while every other territory did a couple of years ago. The PS5 did get a little bit of a price increase with the PS5 Slim because the PS5 digital version was $400. They raised it to $450 with the Slim, and it's always been $500 for the disc drive edition. But like when you're comparing the cost of a Nintendo Switch 2, which starts at $450, and you look at what you get with a $450 PlayStation 5, it's night and day. Like the amount of graphic potential, frame rate potential, just overall ease of use and quality of life on the PS5 compared to the Switch 2. I mean, if you choose to play Elden Ring on the Switch 2 over the PS5, you are deliberately giving yourself a worse experience. It runs it worse than the Steam Deck, and that's embarrassing. And if you have a PS5, I would buy a PS5 Pro. That is the best console I've ever owned, bar none. It is just so good. I understand the price is insane, but like look at Nintendo. They've got to charge $450 for the Nintendo Switch 2. Consoles are only going to get more expensive because of inflation and tariffs and everything like that. So it's not like the old days where the longer you wait, the less you'll pay. They've barely done any sales on the PlayStation 5, and they've increased the price as time has gone on. So it's not like back in the day when you could wait for that special special bundle that would be $200 and come with 2 games or whatever. It's never going to go back to that. Like, you're even paying more for bundles with games like Astrobot now. So yeah, honestly, if you've been holding out and you don't want to play video games anymore, stick with your PS4. But if you want a decent experience, no matter what game you play, I don't see any reason not to upgrade to a PS5 at this point, especially with the looming price increase that could happen within the next year or so. Like, you don't want to be stuck without a PlayStation 5 when GTA 6 comes out. Then you might have to buy an Xbox Series X because those are going to be available forever because no one really wants them. But yeah, that brings me to the third news story of this video, which is about Devil May Cry 6. So I have been on a Devil May Cry kick lately. I downloaded the HD collection. I played the first game, which I had never played before. I love that game. It is excellent. I beat it in one sitting. It took me about 6 hours to get through. It's very inspired by the first Resident Evil. The map feels like exploring a Resident Evil castle, and it started its life as Resident Evil 3, I think, which makes sense. It was either 3 or 4 because when you're playing the game, it looks and controls like a fast-paced Resident Evil game. I played Devil May Cry 3 before. I started that game again. It's excellent. Devil May Cry 4 is awesome. I'm even a fan of the DMC remake that they teased with PlayStation All-Stars Battle Royale, like the Ninja Theory developed game that had great combat, but it wasn't time to remake Devil May Cry and reboot it because everyone still really liked Devil May Cry in its state when that game came out. But Devil May Cry 5 really pushed the series forward, man. Like, that game is phenomenal. If you haven't played the PS5 remake of it, it is one of the best looking and playing games on the console to this day still. It comes with a DLC that lets you play the entire game as Virgil too, which is awesome. The vibe of that game is immaculate. The soundtrack is cool. Like, it really just screams cool. And I was like, why haven't they made Devil May Cry 6? But it looks like that is in the works because the voice actor for Dante was just doing a Reddit AMA, and he kind of let it slip that he's doing mocap work right now for DMC6. Now, the way he talked about it was a little interesting because he said 6, no, I mean 5 when he was talking about doing mocap, but it was right after talking about the DMC Devil May Cry remake. So if you look at the series, DMC is kind of Devil May Cry 5, which would make DMC5 DMC6. So he could have got confused there and called it DMC6. But like, I want to believe that Capcom is smart enough to develop a new Devil May Cry. After how many copies DMC5 sold, I feel like it's just a no-brainer. It's just really weird to see the Devil May Cry show out right now and they have nothing new game-wise to even announce or tease. Like, that was just a huge drop ball. That show was announced a long time ago. They had infinite time to put something together for the PlayStation 5, and we have a sale on the HD collection, Devil May Cry 4 and Devil May Cry 5. Like, I don't know why Capcom is so good about other franchises like Onimusha or Resident Evil, constantly re-releasing stuff all the time, but Devil May Cry always seems to take a back seat. It might be for the best though, because in my opinion, as a Devil May Cry fan, the show is just not very good at all. Like, I should have seen this coming because Castlevania Season 1 was awesome. It had Dracula, it had Castlevania. That was very cool. It was a very good versus evil, you know, Christian iconography sort of TV show. And then it got so bad. Like, it was like spiteful about the fact that it was a Castlevania show. Like, I dipped out at the point where they explained that the reason vampires are afraid of crosses is because they have advanced vision, so geometric shapes scare them. Like, if you don't want to make a show that respects the lore of the games that the show is about, don't make the show. Like, make your own thing. But they're all scared to make their own thing because no one will watch it. So they got to latch on to something that already exists, that has a fan base, and then they've got to subvert it in any way freaking possible. And that's exactly what they did with Devil May Cry. They like immediately start out saying, well, you know, demons are from hell, but they're not bad. They're just living in hell. And it's bad that we kind of made them villains. No, we can have demons be villains, dude. It's fine. So yeah, as far as the DMC show goes, I wouldn't watch it. I don't think it's very good. I'm not going to watch something from this guy again because I'm sick of him taking properties I like Castlevania or Devil May Cry, and trying to turn them into its own thing. It's just like so tired at this point. So yeah, I'm glad Capcom is working on DMC6, allegedly. It's really needed at this point in time because you've got games like Phantom Blade Zero coming out where they're just coming out and saying, yeah, we want to get back to the PS2 era where it's just a fun game with awesome combat and linear levels. Onimusha, it's not an open world game. It's a 20-hour single player game where you're going through level by level, slicing the out of people with katanas. Like, we're getting back to the fun that's not meta or ironic, trying to make really cool stuff like slicing people in half with a katana over and over again somehow bad. Like, am I wrong? Are people still invested in these violent shows like where it's meta millennial Reddit cringe humor where they like look directly at the camera and say that just happened, or hey, let's get meta and deep, guys, and talk about how America's bad in every single show, even when it's about a guy who has a business where he fights demons? Like, does it need to have that deep meta plot line? No. All it has to be is about Dante and Virgil having a brother face off and trying to respect their dad's legacy in different ways. Like, it really can be that simple, and things were better when they were that simple. So yeah, I know I just co-opted the Devil May Cry League to bitch about everything being meta Reddit cringe humor, but it needed to be said. I'm sorry. I hope you guys agree with me. If you don't, enjoy it, because that's seemingly everything they make these days. So you are eating good. Things are good for you. As always, guys, my name is Jimmy Champagne. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching, and shape on.